Hello. Hi, my name is Tiffany. Welcome to this review of In the Heights. Why do it like that? Hello, my name is Tiffany, coming to you live from Washington Heights with an in-depth review of Lin-Manuel Miranda's and John M. Chu's Broadway musical film adaptation of In the Heights. So before we get started, I just want to give a little disclaimer, right? So I did not watch the Broadway musical. I never got a chance to, even though I was interested in watching it at the time when it was on Broadway, obviously, but I never got the chance. So because of that, I will not be making comparisons of the Broadway musical and the film because I ain't seen it, so I ain't got nothing to compare. Even though I have heard from people that have seen the show, the Broadway musical, that it's better than the film adaptation. But that's neither here nor there, you know? Moving on. So, to give you guys some basics before we get into the review, Washington Heights is a neighborhood in northern Manhattan. It's literally like right above Harlem. If you guys know Harlem, I feel like it's a more well-known neighborhood. So that's just like to give you guys a geographical context. The total population of Washington Heights is 162,898, with half of this population being foreign-born, and the number one country of foreign-born residents are from the Dominican Republic, with about 60% of the population, which equates to 48,371 residents. Dominicans not only dominate Washington Heights, they also dominate neighboring neighborhoods. Like Inwood, which is actually where I was raised in anyways, so the reason why Washington Heights is a predominantly Dominican neighborhood to begin with is because during the mid to late 1980s, when over 40,000 Dominicans immigrated to New York, including my very own grandmother, they faced a lot of economic disparity and racist landlords because what's new. And because of this, they only were able to settle within this neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods. So because you guys don't know me, I want to give you guys like a little context on who I am and what I'm about. So as a little Dominican black girl growing up in Inwood, which like I said is predominantly Dominican along with other Latinos, and flying back and forth to the island every summer, I was very much aware of the spectrum within skin tones within the Dominican community. So like even within my mother's side of the family, I'm on the darker side of the spectrum along with like a few of my uncles. So I felt the effects of colorism as young as the age of 4, and I'll never forget the story that my mom told me a while ago about how I was coming home from like kindergarten one day, super proud of this like self-portrait I had made, and I'm here showing my mom and shit, and I had drawn myself like with a light beige or like a light brown crayon or something like that, and my mom questioning me like, why didn't you use a darker brown crayon, which is something that resembles more of your skin tone? And I was like, cause I'm brown, not black. Yikes, right? So obviously as the age of 5, I'm not aware of the nuances that lie within the apparatus that is colorism, right? But this is just an example of how it was already affecting me, and this was only exacerbated by the telenovelas that I used to watch with my mom and grandmother as a kid, because all the people on in the Latinx media are literally fair-skinned, white, European-looking Latinos, which obviously doesn't represent Latinidad as a whole. I just wanted to like say that because that shows how my perception of blackness was affecting my perception of myself and of other black people as well. So when the film adaptation of In the Heights was announced, I wasn't really excited about it. I was just more ambivalent, which is maybe my intuition just protecting me from disappointment, which, yeah. And then the trailer dropped, and I was like, where the black people at? Like, where they at though? Where they at though? The very intentional lack of black Latinx people cast in the lead roles for a film that is supposed to be representative of a majority black neighborhood is just another example of how we are erased from our own narratives. The Latinx community already has an extensive history with colorism and anti-blackness, and In the Heights is just another representation of that. And here's why. So I don't think it's a reach to say that casting fair skin and in some cases white Latinos in roles that are supposed to be representative of black Latinos fuels the anti-blackness within the Latinx community, specifically the Dominican community, because like I said, it's so deeply ingrained within our culture already. And like, even a few months ago, a fair-skinned Dominican woman said that I'm not black. And I was like, sis, where? Sis, where? Like, I am a black woman first and foremost because that's literally how society sees me. So I identify with my Dominican culture to the max because, you know, it's literally part of me, like, and I love it, but to the eyes of the world, I am a black woman first, which honestly I have no problem with because I love my blackness. Although there is a concerted effort in part by the Dominican government and the Western imperialist nations that be to erase the history and African ancestry of Dominicans. Dominicans are majority black. A lot of us are visibly black, like blackity black. Exhibit A. So Lin-Manuel Miranda, his name is a tongue twister. So Lin-Manuel Miranda and John M. Chu and other cast members defended the film's erasure of black Latinx people by saying that they needed to be educated, that they weren't aware, and that they casted the best people for the roles. Even Melissa Barrera, who played Vanessa in the film, said that there were a lot of Afro Latinos throughout the audition process, but they just weren't picked because I guess they're not good enough for lead roles. Or the white casting directors were trying to appease the white supremacy structure within Hollywood because, you know, they're trying to sell a film at the end of the day. And people really don't think that Latinos or black people go to see films or buy shit, even though we're like top consumers. But that's a whole nother story. Like, that's a whole nother video. So at the core of In the Heights is Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is a Puerto Rican man who was raised in Park Terrace and currently lives in Cabrini, which are two areas in uptown Manhattan that are inhabited mostly by affluent, wealthier white residents. So anybody from uptown can tell you that there are basically two Washington Heights. Anything on East Broadway is like a completely different neighborhood than the Washington Heights that Lin-Manuel was trying to convey in his film. And it shows in his film where he's actually from and what he was trying to convey, because something wasn't clicking. And you know, I'm just mentioning this because it just highlights the faults within the film. Yo, but can we like talk real quick about how they had Dominicans playing Puerto Ricans and Puerto Ricans playing Dominicans? Cause
that's weird.
Caribbean Latinx people already face so many stereotypes that basically group us all together as one. And this film just further blurs the line of distinction between cultures that, although they may have some similarities, are still very distinct in their own right. So yeah, some cultural aspects within the film were representative of some cultural aspects within myself and my culture, but I feel like it was just a little misrepresented in some parts, you know? Like, for example, no Dominican calls it piragua. It's literally frio frio. Like, if you know, you know. And if you don't, then clearly you don't. The Boricua was jumping out of Liminal with that one because, sir, you know, I just feel like the film would have been better represented if Usnavi, who's the main character, were a Dominican man, Puerto Rican man, and the neighborhood was set in Spanish Harlem or even the Bronx, for example. Yo, also, please find me a Dominican that calls it the DR. Who the hell says the DR? It's literally just DR. Like, shit just wasn't adding up. You know, there's so much resilience in immigrating to another country and not just maintaining your culture, but also making it a prominent fixture within that country. Like, Washington Heights is literally has been renamed as Little Dominican Republic, which is insane. It's like we have our own Chinatown, basically. And I think that's really fucking dope, you know? So I love my culture, and obviously I'm biased, but I think that it should just be properly represented. If I do same to myself, it's not too much to ask, right? Also, another theme that I felt the movie didn't properly convey or should have gotten deeper into is the gentrification that's running rampant within the community right now and has been for decades, honestly, if we're being truthful. And I know what you're gonna say, that they had that whole plot line with Nina's father and his business and all of that, and yes, I totally get it, but the movie is hella long. First of all, it's 2.5 hours compared to a 90-minute runtime, which is usually the norm. I felt that they could have used this time, like all that time, to dig deeper with that plot line, which is super not only relevant but just relatable to many different communities, not just in New York but all over the freaking country. Washington Heights has the city's second highest rate in serious housing violations and the lowest rental vacancy rate. The average household pays a third of its income in rent, while low-income households pay the majority of their income in rent, which is ridiculous, straight wildin'. Like, how is that sustainable for anybody, you know? Fears about displacement within the community has only been exacerbated with the 2018 Inwood rezoning plan, and I'm not gonna get too much into it, but it's basically this plan that is gonna build a bunch of freaking skyscrapers, and they're gonna be like apartment buildings with some of the apartment units being for affordable low-income households. City officials say that this is supposed to like help out with the gentrification, but honestly, many residents, including myself, feel that it's only going to accelerate gentrification. Many apartment units in Inwood are already rent regulated, while many in Washington Heights and surrounding neighborhoods aren't, and are constantly increasing at a faster rate than anywhere else in the city. The median rent in Washington Heights increased by 38% between 2002 and 2014 compared to the citywide 24%. So the real monsters here are capitalism and white supremacy, which go hand in hand, and it just keeps dividing us within the community instead of allowing us coming together to fight and uplifting each other in the process, you know? If you want to make a community better, you need to preserve its culture. With all the displacement and gentrification that's already happening in my community, I felt that the film romanticized my community a little bit, which honestly wouldn't have been a problem if there wasn't already sightings of guided tours of Washington Heights since the movie was premiered, because you know white people always just want to see what the fuck is up. And I will say that this film is very visually appealing, you know, even though some of the scenes was giving a little bit of Disney at some points. But Chu's direction of showcasing how bright and lively my community is not lost on me, because you know we are pretty amazing community. And I like his directorial cinematography style, which is why I liked Crazy Rich Asians as well. But you know, John M. Chu was also called out for colorism and lack of Southeast Asian people casted in lead roles in the film. So it's like, dude really said he wasn't aware and that he needed to be educated. Like, dude, you made the same mistake twice. What you mean? And it's sus that they tapped a Asian man from California to film this movie when there's a freaking abundance of untapped raw talent here in New York City, like within the community itself. Even like the opportunity was right there for you to grab it, and it just like it just feels like not much research was done from Chu's side and among the creative team in general, which begs the question, who is this film actually for? Is it for the Dominicans in the Heights? Is it for the Latinx immigrants with a dollar and a dream, you know, the American dream? American dream, because that's a whole other thing. Or is it for white people that commodify Black and Latinx culture? There have been many Dominicans along with other Latinx folks that have been praising the film, which is completely fine if they weren't in the same breath also admonishing those that are rightfully critical of the film as well, like Rita Moreno. So it's the same way that you don't see the problem with the casting, the same way that you don't see the racism and erasure of Afro Latinos in real life. We're talking about health disparities, economic exclusion, racist beauty standards, aka European beauty standards, microaggressions, implicit bias, and you know, so much more that affect Afro Latinos at a higher scale than our fair counterparts. And it's bigger than just a movie. It's literally systematic, and I'm freaking tired about it. So just to wrap it all up, although Chu's cinematography is chef's kiss, I feel like it failed in setting out to represent and uplift a community that is majority Black. In the Heights is an erasure of Black Latinx folks within my community, and it's also kind of a misrepresentation of my culture as well. Lin-Manuel Miranda is a Puerto Rican man telling the story of a Dominican immigrant and his American dream. And although he did have the affluence to get through the door, I don't think he had the proper experience to convey this story in the way that it should have been conveyed. And you know, it's not to say that somebody from one culture can't tell a story of somebody from another culture, because you know, of course you can. But if you're gonna do it right. You know, I'm not gonna sit my Dominican ass here and tell you a story of like struggle and perseverance from the lens of a Cuban woman just because I've been to Cuba twice. Also, before y'all come at me, I know it's not completely all of Lin-Manuel's fault, you know, but it is his story and he was part of the creative team throughout the whole thing. So with great power comes great responsibility, to quote Spider-Man. At the end of the day, Washington Heights is a community full of Black Latinx people, and to not see us front and center is a choice that can't be ignored. This film only perpetuates the notion that Latinos look a certain way, like J-Lo, Shakira, Sofia Vergara, you know, on and on and on. And it pushes the narrative that Black and Latino identities cannot intersect. So Mi Sueñito is for Latinx folks to give us Afro Latinos the opportunity and the support to tell our own stories in the way that we want it to be told. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe. Oh, let me know down below if you did watch the film, what you thought about it, if you had any of these opinions or ideas while you were watching, what you liked about it, because, you know, I didn't get too deep into what I liked about it. You know, it was a fine film. I just, you know, wanted to talk about the problems within it, because I feel like if we don't address it, it's just going to be swept under the rug, and we're just going to continue this cycle of erasure, which, I mean, has already been happening. So we need to speak up. Again, my name is Tiffany. Thank you so much for watching.